Welcome to our premiere edition of Middle East Voices, the official podcast of the Middle East Voices community. It's a new social journalism and engagement initiative from the Voice of America, where we speak with you, gathering your thoughts and discussing the most pressing and relevant issues affecting the Arab Spring and the new Middle East. I'm Susan Yawkey.
And I'm David Hutchins, sitting in for Mohammed El-Shanawi, who's on assignment. Sue, there's a lot of news this week coming out of the Middle East and the Middle East Voices online community. For those of you who aren't aware, we have been working hard on a new Middle East Voices website, which will be coming online in just a few weeks. This new platform is designed for people to share viewpoints on their perspective about issues like democracy building, elections, regime changes, organizing, culture, you name it. We're inviting people to test the site through Twitter, so make sure you follow us at VOA Middle East, or you can follow me at VOA Hutch.
And you can follow me at VOA Yawkey on Twitter. That's at VOA YACKEE. Anyway, with so much news breaking and chatter on our various sites, we've got a full show. In a moment, we'll share a conversation with Basem Fathy, a winner of a Human Rights Award for being in the thick of it, bringing political freedom to Egypt.
Looking forward to that. And our Mohammed El-Shanawi completed a fascinating segment on the role that humor played in Egypt's Tahrir Revolution and is still playing in helping people understand the major shifts for this country in transition. And I hear it's funny, or it's supposed to be.
I hope so. Let's start with a look at what's been happening in the past week. First off, big news coming out of the UN. On Monday, the United Nations cultural arm, UNESCO, voted to approve the Palestinians' bid for membership. Unlike their bid for statehood in the UN General Assembly, the Palestinians' bid was approved by the body. The United States responded by cutting off financial contributions to UNESCO, and the U.S. is UNESCO's biggest funding source. And one day after UNESCO's actions, Israel's prime minister ordered the building of 2,000 new housing units in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, and has halted money transfers to the Palestinian Authority.
Also on our radar this week, NATO says it's done with its mission in Libya. It ended its mission at midnight Libyan time on Monday. The National Transitional Council also elected Abdul Rahim al-Kib as the country's new interim prime minister. NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said he is proud of the part NATO played in helping Libyan transitional forces drive Gaddafi from power. Now the MTC has to get down to governing and push elections forward.
And there is Syria. The Arab League has stepped into the process of trying to resolve the country's political crisis. Various options for peace include the Syrian government withdrawing security forces from the streets, the stopping violence by pro-government forces against civilians, and the regime of Bashar al-Assad beginning a dialogue with the Syrian opposition in Cairo. To give some insight, we brought in the heavy hitters on our first panel segment of experts. Joining us is Robert Powell, senior Middle East analyst with the Economist Intelligence Unit, who joins us from New York. He's a regular on our daily podcast Middle East Monitor and on the radio. And also on the line from the University of Oklahoma is Josh Landis, Syria expert, author of the authoritative Syria comment blog, and director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Oklahoma. Welcome, gentlemen, to Middle East Voices.
Good morning.
Great.
Good morning. How are you all?
Very good. Josh, I'd like to start with you, actually. We have this Arab League plan being floated this week and a Syrian response. I'd like to know, what do you think the contours of the Arab League plan is? I mean, what are the things that Assad is likely to say, okay, I'll cede that, and what are the things that he'll probably never cede? And what do you think the opposition's response will be once that's made public?
Well, the Arab League, there have been a lot of contradictory leaks coming out, but the bigger picture is the Arab League has agreed to try to mediate, which is very important because it's not just laying down a law and telling Assad that he's got to do certain reforms. It's trying to get a dialogue together. Now, that's going to be, I think, the big stumbling block right there, because Assad has agreed to this. Now, he's also saying that he's going to lead a new constitutional forum to rewrite the Constitution and so forth. But to get the opposition to sit down, and particularly the opposition, the committees, the coordinating committees who are leading the fighting, to sit down with Assad would be a major coup. They have said there is no point in dialogue with this guy. It's too late. And so the Arab League, in a sense, has set itself up for a difficult task, it seems to me. And this is an easy way for the Assad regime to punt the ball, to gain more time. And I think the opposition is going to say, no, we're not going to do this. And it's going to get a little mud on their face. But the leaks of what the Arab League wants is they said radical reform, and ultimately they want presidential elections that are free. And that means getting rid of Article 8 from the Constitution. Article 8 in the Constitution says the Ba'ath Party is the leader of Syrian politics and society. That means it dominates parliament, and every 7 years it gets to elect its leader, Bashar al-Assad, to be president. So it's constitutionally guaranteed the majority in parliament. If you could get rid of that, then you would theoretically open the door to real democracy. But Assad is not going to get rid of Article 8. He wants to remain the president. I think that he'll accept a number of reforms as long as it leaves him in charge of the country.
Well, Robert, what do you think about all this?
It's relatively smart politics on the part of the Syrian regime. They're on the back foot, and as Josh mentioned, they're trying to effectively shift the blame to others. So yes, if they accept, in kind of speech marks, the Arab League proposal, then it means the opposition have to sit down with them, and the opposition are never going to be game for that. It would be interesting, though, if they did try to call that bluff, because then the Syrians would have to organize, according to the deal, free elections. And what exactly free elections would mean in Syria would potentially outside observers. I can't begin to imagine, unless the observers perhaps came from Iran or something. It does look like that they're just playing for time, but it is fascinating to see the Arab League on side. And if the Arab League was able to reach a position, say, where they came out outright in condemnation and potentially even suspended the membership of Syria, then that would be a major blow to Bashar Assad's credibility, and it would also, importantly, potentially allow the UN Security Council to come out with a firmer line. One of the reasons why the Security Council has not got very far, or as far as it could have, in imposing sanctions on Syria, because the Arab League has not put forward a strong line. But when the Arab League takes a point of view, as it did with Libya, then the Security Council and the Chinese and the Russians in particular may be less reluctant to act.
The UN says over 3,000 people have been killed in Syria. Has the international community failed there?
It's kind of the art of the possible, though. And what more could they have done? If people are talking about wading in the same way NATO did in Libya, then that would probably have been hugely counterproductive. And it is in the center of a volatile region with, among others, Turkey, Lebanon, Iraq on its borders, and it could have become very bloody, very messy, very quickly. So it's difficult to know entirely what could be done. Equally, the opposition are not absolutely united on this. So if you ask different opposition people, they'll be for or against sanctions. There's no single line on that either. So it's a pretty tough nut to crack, if truth be told.
We saw in our reporting a few weeks ago people holding up placards actually asking for intervention. Clearly, there was an oil equation. Gaddafi wasn't very popular, and the international force was mobilized quite quickly. And after 7 months, we had regime change in conjunction with the rebels. But NATO is basically saying we're not going to be involved with Syria at all. A, is this a double standard? And B, do you think those protesters actually would like some sort of international intervention?
Well, let me jump in here as Joshua. Of course there is a double standard. Syria, though, is a country of 23 million with deep ethnic and confessional splits. Libya is a country of 6 million people where half of the country, Benghazi, had already split away and formed an opposition that was beginning to get united. And there were massive defections from foreign ministry throughout all the ministries of the government. It looked like Gaddafi's support was crumbling, which it was, and that the country would quickly change regime on its own. So when the NATO jumped in to provide a little bit of a protective zone, they thought that they were going to be doing something for a few weeks. This process was well in hand, and they would be in and out. Now, it turned out to be much more complicated than they originally thought, but not, they were right on the whole. They had to bomb a lot more than they thought, 30-something thousand people killed, and it did it. And I think all of them, were wiping their brow and taking a big sigh of relief that, in fact, he fell when he did, and that they could get out of there. But it made them, I think, a little bit anxious. They don't want to get into Syria. Syria is a big country, and there is no Benghazi. The army has stayed loyal, by and large. There's been a lot of little defections at the lower ranks from the Sunnis, but the big difference is that the Alawites, who are 12% of the regime, the Christians, who are another 10%, have stayed loyal, and the upper ranks of the military are dominated by Alawites. They are going to fight for Assad. They have retained control of the country and the military. For anybody to say this is analogous to Libya is crazy. It's a much, much bigger operation. So, yes, there is, technically, people are being hypocritical by not bombing Syria. But the analogies really come up very short when you look at what actually has to be done. There's some very heavy lifting for the Syrians. And I think everybody's saying, you first, you first. Now everybody's looking at Turkey, and they want Turkey to sort of go to war against Syria, but without NATO or American help. And clearly there's a lot more jockeying that has to go on here.
Thank you both very much, gentlemen, for joining us today on our first Middle East Voices panel discussion. We've been speaking with Robert Powell, Senior Middle East Analyst with the Economist Intelligence Unit, and Joshua Landis, a Syria expert, author of the authoritative Syria Comment blog, and director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Oklahoma. Basem Fathy is winner of the nonprofit organization Human Rights First annual Human Rights Award for his work to bring political freedom to Egypt and build a democracy. Welcome to our program.
Thank you very much.
What role have you played in the Arab Spring of Egypt?
The whole uprising, it was leaderless, but there was a group of people who were working for democracy and for getting to this day a few years ago, and I was one of those. I worked with many youth initiatives working on democracy, mobilizing the people and recruiting young people for doing something dramatic for changing the stagnant situation in Egypt. And on the revolution itself, or on the days of the uprising, in the start I was responsible for doing some logistic work, for getting tents or blankets for those who are going to sit in, getting a kind of shields or whatever things needed for facing the security if they attacked us using gases or whatever.
Was there any particular moment that stands out in your mind?
On Friday, 28th of January, this was a very distinctive moment. I mean, it was the first time that we're facing the security while using bullets and tear gases, using their vehicles for crashing the people. Of course, we faced the Central Security Forces a lot before. I mean, they were just using the sticks for, again, the demonstrations that were like less than 200. But later, when we became millions in the street, now we felt that we're just facing an occupying military. So this was very distinctive, while seeing all the fellows and the friends and even the people you don't know around me, while just falling by the bullets.
Were you very frightened?
This was very strange. Supposedly that when you're seeing somebody killed beside of you, you're going to be scared and go away. But exactly the opposite happened. When we witnessed somebody killed or something, we're going forward more and more.
You became defiant.
The hope was rising.
Well, what can revolutionaries of other nations learn from your personal experience?
The most important lesson that we can challenge the impossible.
What is your best advice for those trying to build democracy?
Keep struggling, nothing impossible. That's all. It's not easy. We just realized that starting a revolution is much easier than building democracy. A lot of challenges now, where it's not easy at all.
And what about the future of Egypt? What would you like to see? A democracy like we have here in the United States, or something special?
If we're dreaming about democracy, then of course we're going to dream a better model than the United States.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and good luck.
Oh, thank you, of course.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We're joined now by correspondent Mohammed El-Shanawi. Mohammed, we just got an account of what it looked like in Tahrir Square during the 18-day revolution. Was it that serious all the time?
Oh, no. Egyptians are so funny, even in serious situations and challenging moments.
I didn't realize that was a cultural trait. So how funny were they in Tahrir Square?
Well, you will be the judge. Deposed President Mubarak made a good punch line for political humor when he refused to leave. Here are some signs in the square. Just got married. Please leave. I missed my wife.
Oh, boy.
Mubarak, please leave. I want to take a shower.
Oh, that's a good one.
My wife is in labor and the baby doesn't want to see your face. Will you please leave soon? Another one. You were a pilot. Why not flying to Saudi Arabia?
Oh.
If you don't like Saudi Arabia, America is beautiful.
Oh, yeah, but the U.S. never invited Mubarak for asylum in the U.S.
That's true, but when President Obama asked Mubarak to leave, they had another joke. President Obama told President Mubarak, time has come to say goodbye to your people. Mubarak answered, why? Are they leaving?
Yeah. So Tahrir Square was fun, too, even during some serious protesting charged with real passion.
Yes, even when President Mubarak refused to respond to protesters, there were signs like these. I'm a dentist and I know how to pull him out. There was a child sleeping on a sidewalk with this sign next to him. Wake me up when he leaves. Even carpenters made fun of President Mubarak. They had this sign. Carpenters would like to know what kind of glue you are using to stick for 30 years.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people would like to know what glue that was. It's very funny. Hey, did they quit joking after he was deposed, though?
Not at all. Here is another one. Mubarak went to heaven, met former Egyptian presidents Nasser and Sadat, and they asked him, what finished you off, poison or gunfire? Mubarak answered, neither. It was the Facebook.
That's true, though. That's really true.
It was.
Were Mubarak jokes created only during the revolution?
No, actually has been joked about for more than 20 years. He was known for taking too long to take any decision on anything, so Egyptians had this question. What is the perfect day for Mubarak?
I don't know. What is?
A day when nothing happens.
Oh.
But as Mubarak never appointed a vice president for 3 decades, Egyptians had another quiz. Why do you think Mubarak never had a vice president?
Why?
Because when Nasser became a president, he wanted a vice president stupider than himself to avoid a challenger. So he picked Sadat. Sadat then looked for a vice president stupider than himself. He picked Mubarak. But poor Mubarak, he couldn't find anyone stupider than himself.
That's good. So now it's over with political humor in Egypt?
No, never. Egyptians have a long history of expressing their political points of view through humor. Now, as they are looking forward to the next president of Egypt, they put forward a list of requirements for such a president. 1. His birthplace should not be Monofia, the birthplace of both Sadat and Mubarak. 2. Should have a Facebook account. 3. Should watch Al Jazeera on a daily basis to know what's going on. 4. Before taking the oath, he should show the people that his chair is a non-stick chair.
Oh, Mohammed, you're going to Cairo, and I expect you to come back with more of that humor.
Don't worry, Egyptians never run out of political humor.
Well, I've got a new perspective on the Egyptian culture. Thank you so much, Mohammed.
Thank you.
That's it for our premier Middle East Voices program. We're just getting this podcast going, and we would like your input to improve the show. Join our community on Middle East Voices on Facebook and post your thoughts directly on the wall. Also, why not become a fan of that page and find out more about our new social journalism and engagement platform, which will be online in a few weeks. And a special thanks to David for stepping in this week.
Thanks, Sue, and thanks to Mohammed for letting me fill in. Sue, as you say, this show will only succeed with input and suggestions from our fans and listeners, so do join us on Facebook and Twitter. Just Google VOA Middle East Voices in both cases. Keep the dialogue going with us and check out our new site. We'll see you next time.
Next time.